It was a dark time for Sega. They were once popular in America after the success of the Genesis, but elsewhere, their consoles couldn't compete with Nintendo. They tried new things to secure their spot at the top, but to no avail. And after the failure of the Dreamcast, they switched to being a third-party developer. They found some success in some releases, such as Super Monkey Ball and re-releasing Sonic games, but they needed something more. They needed the next big thing. They didn't know what that could possibly be. That is, until one of the higher-ups, Toshihiro Nagoshi, had an idea. It was when he and his team were out drinking in Kabukicho, an entertainment district in Tokyo, when someone said to him, "Wouldn't it be cool if you could explore this town in a game?" And thus, inspiration was struck. The idea was simple: live the life of a Yakuza and roam around a city similar to Kabukicho. He presented his idea to his higher-ups and was immediately rejected.
Nani?
Violence against humans was still not a norm for video games in Japan, and its target demographic, being young males, not only wasn't broad enough, but was also new territory for Sega, as their main demographic before was kids. Nagoshi would try again and again, and was rejected every time. He said, quote, "If it all goes wrong, I'll get down on my hands and knees or whatever you want. I'll take responsibility for it all, so just let me do it." But still, they wouldn't budge. All hope seemed lost until one man, Masayoshi Kikuchi, who worked on games like Panzer Dragoon, took a look at the proposal and said that it looked interesting. There was hope. Nagoshi would use this intrigue as leverage when attempting to convince the higher-ups to greenlight the game.
Have you ever done DMT?
Kikuchi eventually joined Nagoshi's team. He would make suggestions to give the game more depth, like adding Haruka. Slowly but surely, they gained the support of more and more people, and the higher-ups would start to budge. But there were still concerns, such as how the game would sell overseas, to which Nagoshi responded, who cares? Okay. Sony didn't like the violence against humans and thought that the game would be best suited as a PC game instead of a PS2 game. But this was before PC gaming was popular in Japan, so Nagoshi insisted that it had to be on the PS2 or else it would fail. Eventually they relented and the project was greenlit. At first it was estimated that the game would require a budget of 1 billion yen. The final budget was 2.4 billion yen. It was teased in August of 2005 as Project J. They put way more effort into the marketing than any other game Sega made. There were advertisements on TV, in magazines, newspapers. They made 100,000 demo discs and had demo booths set up at the Tokyo Game Show of that year. And in December, it would launch in Japan to commercial success. There was a lot for people to enjoy, including intense combat, a heartfelt story, and a world rich with detail. It included real-life things like Don Quixote, a real-life discount store in Japan, and Boss Coffee. Guess what that is? It gained a fan base pretty quickly, with a fan movie being made soon after the game's release. The game would also launch almost a year later everywhere else to an overwhelming... It had an English dub that was... weird.
How many times I gotta tell you, I'm not Yakuza. You're retarded or just deaf. You.
They did have Luke Skywalker himself voice Majima, but this couldn't help the other negative aspects, like it having too many things only someone from Japan could understand. What's an Oyabun? Or an Aniki? Or a cafe? That's definitely a Japan-only thing. And the camera is... what's the word? Oh, right. Garbage. But despite this, Sega knew they had something special. After all, this game saved Sega from being defunct. So they began work on the next game. 2 months after the game's launch in Japan, the higher-ups at Sega told Nagoshi, "Hey, this game made us a lot of money. Make another one and release it by the end of the year."
Huh?
So they were to launch a sequel that was 1.5 times bigger than the original in only 10 months. It helped that they carried over some assets from the previous game, such as the city of Kamurocho and the models for characters like Kiryu and Majima, but there was still a ton of work to be done. They had to make a new story, 2 new cities, new sub-stories, new music, and more only in 10 months. The odds were severely stacked against them. And yet somehow, they pulled it off. Yakuza 2 sold almost 300,000 units in a week. It would launch in the West almost 2 years later, and would once again be met with meh results. It got rid of the stupid English dub in exchange for keeping the Japanese dub, but would only sell 40,000 copies outside of Japan. These games would eventually lead to the studio who made these games to be called Ryu Gakutoku Studios, after the name of the game in Japan. The studio would go on to make 5 more Yakuza games, 7 spin-off games, 3 remakes, 2 Monkey Ball games, a mobile game, apparently, and a Fist of the North Star game that everyone ignores because it's bad. The head of the studio, Nagoshi, would depart in 2021 to form his own studio called Nagoshi Studios, which is a subsidiary of the Chinese company called NetEase. But what he left behind was an excellent library of games, many of which are the peak of their genre. Not the Monkey Ball games though. If you enjoyed this video, you may enjoy this one too. And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an upload.